Okay, we are live. Bless Nana always being early.
Yay!
Hi.
Hi,
She was
Nana.
so worried because of this being later. Like, it's really late for her.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say a hi. And I was like, I will tell everyone hi if you can't be there. But she made it.
Yeah, I know. It's always at a very uncomfortable time for you, Nana. So extra thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
I told her, I was like, I mean, you can't lose your position because you're already the president of our fan club here. So, like, no one's going to kick you out of your post. You're too important.
Yeah, that's right.
She gave us,
Oh my gosh.
It's Monday.
It's already tomorrow for you.
Oh my God, you're right.
No, but she gave us our iconic tagline of, how is this book both feminist and sexist at the same time?
Yes. Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you for making us your exception.
We love you.
And share
We're
your
sorry.
secrets of going to bed at 11.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't even want to talk about my sleep schedule. It's bad. Just know that it's bad.
I believe you.
I fell asleep on the couch last night at 3 a.m. My plane got in at 11 p.m. and I got back home around midnight. And I was like talking to my roommates and I was like, I think I'm going to play just a little bit of Assassin's Creed before bed.
Just a smidge.
Just a smidge. And then fell asleep sometime around 3. Like I said, I'd close my eyes and then go upstairs to go to sleep. And I woke up at 9 a.m.
Ooh. Well, sometimes it's just like that.
Insomnia is rough. I used to have that bad, and it just kind of went away, possibly because now I'm just always tired, which is not ideal. Probably not how you're supposed to cure that, but
yeah, I'm like, that doesn't feel like it's been fixed then. Okay.
Julia's like, I think this is wrong too.
I don't think the cure is just always being tired.
Yeah, that's the opposite of insomnia, right? Just perpetual exhaustion.
Always tired, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll give it a few more minutes. People to show up. I know this is like kind of an obscure book to find. Like there's obviously this translation, but it's not super. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for saying hey. We love it.
Yeah. Yeah, just not like. I think there's a reason that they're republishing this whole like line of like feminist nonfiction classics is because they're not super well known. So
yeah.
No.
I mean, it's literally from the University of Chicago Press, so
I know
they are doing the Lord's work. Thank you, University of Chicago.
I know. I may have already got a couple others in this line. Like,
really, I'm gonna have to look at more in this line. But this was hard to find. I couldn't find it in any of my local bookstores.
Yeah, I think I got mine from Barnes & Noble because that was one of the only, I think it was Barnes & Noble. I don't remember. It was one of the only places that had it. Which like with university presses, sometimes even Barnes & Noble won't have it. So.
Yep. But still, I'm glad you picked it despite its obscurity because wow, what a journey it was to read.
Yeah,
it was.
Yep.
I think Taylor, before like for our last one, we were introducing this book. I think you described it as we're gonna watch Giuseppe get destroyed with facts and logic, and I'm like,
I probably did say that.
It's like I think it's true. Yeah. I mean, if I had to explain this book,
Giuseppe gets destroyed with facts and logic.
Yeah, I think I actually, in my Goodreads review, I think I actually said "Get wrecked, Giuseppe." Like that was one of the things. Because that's what happens.
I mean, he does seem like he was just the worst. He seems like he was
an absolute piece of trash. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to Giuseppe. He's on my list. Okay. Actually, he would be if I had my pen with me. There we go. I'm so prepared. I did actually pull up my Goodreads review to talk about content warnings. So I did that ahead of time, which I never remember.
Ooh.
So
yeah, I feel like this is one of the ones where I read it in a timely fashion and I was like, good job, Julia. And now that the live show's here, I'm like, remember powers, activate, like remember the book. Come on, you can do it. So we'll see. But I remember some of my big feelings. So
that's why you read it 20 minutes before.
yeah.
Then it's fresh in your mind.
We call that being the most
Life hack.
prepared.
You're like, if you think about it, I'm actually the best prepared for this.
I guess it's up to me to carry the team. No.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Probably not.
All right. So I think we can go ahead and start.
Let's do it.
Start our introductory material for the live show.
Thanks.
All right. So hello, everybody. Thank you for being here for another episode of Past It Classics. This is a special nonfiction feature because we don't do these a lot. But we're going to be talking about The Nobility and Excellence of Women and the Defects and Vices of Men by Lucrezia Marinella, translated by Anne Dunhill. This is, I think, basically the only edition I've seen. So probably if you read it, you read this edition. And do we want to do quick host intros before we get into other things? So I don't know who we started with. So Julia and Taylor, fight it out.
I can go if you want.
Okay.
Go for it.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor from Page Screen Taylor. I mostly read like romance classics. I have actually gotten on an Ellen Hildebrand binge session.
I forgot you mentioned that.
Didn't think I would, but my God, I've been devouring everything she's written. And I'm currently not active on my channel now, but I'm hoping to make a comeback around mid-fall. So fingers crossed. Other than that, do you want me to give the quote from the book?
Yes, actually. So we talked about, instead of doing like a recommendation, we thought it'd be fun to pick a quote we wanted to share from the book to kind of set the tone for the discussion. Like, we are going to share quotes at the end, but we thought this will add some spice to the intros. So go for it.
Okay, so here's one from part 1 of The Nobility and Excellence of Women. Let's see. One wonders, having listed the above arguments, why he goes on, he meaning the general man, to speak of the evils that wicked women bring on to their husbands. To my mind, these accusations are either untrue or of little importance, and assume many things to be true that are not. It is rare to find it written in stories that women have killed some man or desired the death of their father in order to inherit his possessions, such as cruel men have done. If women are by nature quiet and peaceful, as everyone asserts, why should they cause so much discord at home?
Yeah. I really like the way she points out hypocrisies.
Mm-hmm.
Very entertaining. All right, Julia, go for it.
Okay, yes. Hi, I'm Julia from Shakespeare and Such. I've got a good breadth of reading. I like to think, mainly a lot of historical fiction, a lot of classics, lately a lot of romance, and also this month a lot of middle grade, which has been very fun. So Kara, I'm sure you're happy about that.
My heart just grew.
No, I mean, I really I think I'm reading like 3, but I've got like another 2 on my TBR. Like there's a lot of middle grade going on right now.
I like it.
I'm gonna share one of my but wait, there's 2 that are both like on a page next to each other. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. Sorry, she's so savage. I love Lucrezia. I say that to women would not be loved by women were it not for our courteous and benign natures, to which it seems discourteous not to love our male admirers a little.
Yeah. Lucrezia really brought it with the sass, and I'm a fan.
She's like, oh, you want to talk about looks? Look at all of you. Look at these beautiful women, and then look at all of you. Yeah. She makes valid points.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, hi, everyone. My name is Kara. My channel is obviously Wild Book Garden. I read a lot of everything, like fantasy, historical fiction, classics, nonfiction, contemporary, sprinkle some romance in there. And I'm obviously very passionate about reading all age ranges because I never shut up about it. And yeah, so I have a quote ready to go here. But in our times, there are few women who apply themselves to study or the military arts, since men, fearing to lose their authority and become women's servants, often forbid them even to learn to read or write. I just think the way she talks about education is like, that one is like not as sassy as it is like really biting and accurate. So we have some sassy ones coming too.
I think she has a good mix of like, here's my really good point, and I'm going to point out, you know, this and that. And then she has ones where she's like, men are garbage, women are angels, deal with it. Like, I'm like, okay, Lucrezia.
Yeah. I love the like certain obstinate little men that have.
Yeah, I marked that one.
I was like, oh my god. Yeah. All right. So before we get into our general thoughts, I'm going to share some content warnings that may come up in discussion. Some of these definitely will. Some of them, not sure. But we have misogyny, misanthropy, sexism, abuse, classism, and then some brief references to racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, and then references to animal death and torture. Like I said, I don't think all of those will come up, but some of them certainly will. Juliet, did I forget any?
2 points. Maybe I missed it. Did you say suicide?
No, I didn't. Thank you for
I've got notes on that I want to bring up. So
yes, thank you for catching that.
And I also would like to bring up discussions of like sexual abuse or assault might pop up too.
Yes. Thank you guys for catching those.
And the last thing I want to say, which isn't necessarily like a content warning, but just like as a whole, like this book, because it was written so long ago, does deal with just like strictly the idea of men and women. And so there's not really, I'm sure it'll come up in conversation, but like her points are not nuanced on gender, whereas I'm sure we will have things to say about that.
Yes, it's very binary. And there are definitely some like period views regarding gender and race actually in random moments. But okay, I think those are all of them. Thank you guys for catching both of those. I think sometimes like with nonfiction, it's a little like I track content warnings a little differently. So thank you for picking up on those. Because those are pretty big elements in some of the examples she uses.
Yeah. Look like this. They come up here and there and everywhere.
Yes. Okay, so do we want to start off like we always do with kind of overall thoughts? If you want to share a rating, this is a very interesting book to rate because it's like very much a particular kind of argument that they did in the Renaissance. So it's not the most like narrative nonfiction, but if you want to kind of share some overall thoughts on the book, Julia, we can start with you this time.
I really am glad that I read it and liked the experience of reading it, but I did just give it 3.5 stars. I feel like if I was a student and I like needed to write a paper, like this would be like an incredible resource for me. But unless I'm like trying to prove a point the way she was, I can't imagine myself just like casually rereading this, which is one of the things I think about when I think about enjoyment of reading. You know, like, is it something I want? But I'll like keep it on my shelf. But do I plan on rereading it now? And I also, I know it's just kind of like the structure, but I just could not get over. I'm like, this whole book is a list. It's a list. The entire book is a list in a list in a list of a list. And it kind of drove me bananas. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I like it.
Taylor, what about you?
So I'm with you, Julia, on the list aspect of it. I'm not sure where I'm rating it. It's somewhere between I'm waffling between a 2.5 and a 3 star because I do think Lucrezia has some really good points. And will admit that I am being unfair because like I studied a lot of feminist theory like years ago when I was in college, but and like this obviously doesn't have the nuance of like other texts. So like it's sometimes hard for me to grapple with like why are you writing this while also thinking like, okay, well it's the 1600s, they didn't have much going for them. But
we should be happy with what we got, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. People were taking what they could get, and she does have some great points. And when she's writing like actual points, it's great. But the list format got on my nerves. And part of the reason why I could finish this book so quickly was when she started getting into the list. It was like, okay, I can skim, because like she would name like. I'm like 3 to 5 examples is like a lot, but it makes sense. But she would just keep going.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So that sort of like hindered my enjoyment of the whole thing.
Yeah. I think I have similar feelings. I think my rating I settled on was like 3.75 maybe. Maybe somewhere between 3.5 and that. Because I also like there were some really great points she made. There were multiple places that I'm like, wow, this is really like relevant to today. Some of the ideas that she expressed are, I think, even considering this is a feminist text, are still surprising to me in how like progressive they were. But then there was also a lot of stuff that wasn't. And the structure was a struggle for me as well. I think because I had seen Julia's review before I started, I think that prepared me a little bit for it. And yeah, like the actual analysis I think is fantastic, but like the amount of this book that is just like a list replying to another list is a lot. And I also have to remind myself like that was the format. Like this is what Giuseppe Pazzi did. So I should have said this at the beginning. This is like a response to a particular like screed against women that she wrote in response to it. So he was writing a very particular kind of argument. And then she, to refute that, had to respond in a very particular kind of argument. Also, there were just different conventions for like writing essays. So like I understand all that, but it still didn't make for a super compelling experience all the way through. So yeah, I think I have very similar thoughts to you guys. Like I also am very glad I read it. I highlighted and underlined so much more than I thought I would. And I definitely am going to keep this. I could see myself even referring to sections that I marked, but it's not something I'll be like, oh yeah, I think I'll pick this up and read it again. Like, just for funsies.
Not quite. I will say though, like it gave me quite a TBR because she would like reference a story or a quote, and I'd be like, I want to know more about this person, or like, what did this quote come from? I want to read this. So I appreciate it for that because it made me interested in some other things.
Yeah, I had that experience as well. I think also some of the issues I had with the structure were, and it's not their fault, but the way the format for the footnotes happened, like I don't know how else you would do it, but I got really irritated with having to like read the page and then like go down and read a paragraph long footnote that is basically just saying where this quote came from. Which like I don't know how else you would do it, but I have issues and I read them. I shouldn't have. Like it was unnecessary, but I read them. And it was funny sometimes seeing the translator's note, like, I cannot find this reference anywhere. In any literature known to man. Like, yeah. So I wonder how much of my issue with the structure was also the fact that this is a translation of a particular kind of argument. But kind of like we were saying with the original text, it's like, you can't change those aspects of the format. So I kind of just had to like suck it up. Yeah. So something else that I think is interesting. So this is this text and the one she was responding to, they're like arguments. So Giuseppe Pazzi's argument was that women suck and they're like horrible creatures sent to torment men. And then Lucrezia's response is basically, you got it backwards, bro. So I don't know. Like, I feel like it's interesting to like think about these arguments in the sense of like, obviously Lucrezia's point being that women are not inferior to men. we can all agree, yes, that's true. But I also think it's interesting to look at it in the context of based on the requirements of their arguments. I wanted to know if you guys, like, based on the text, who do you think won, Lucrezia or Giuseppe? Obviously, we didn't read his original text, but we got quite a bit about it. So if you had to make a guess, I'm curious.
I mean, I don't have a strong feeling, but you know, considering that hers was the response, I feel like she came out on top because she was like, here's the point you gave, here's how I'm refuting your point, and oh look, the end, I win. Okay. Like, even if her point wasn't like 100% like, oh yeah. That's all. She got the last word in, you know?
Yeah.
As far as we know. That would be
Yeah.
wild to find out he had like another one.
I don't know if you guys read any of the introductory stuff. It was also very dull. And it didn't have the benefit of Lucrezia stuff where it's like, okay, there were stretches where I'm like, I'm not into this, but then there'd be like these really great, you know, nuggets of wisdom. The introductory stuff was, some of it was important, but a lot of it I felt like wasn't. But one thing that it did give interesting context for is it talked about the particular intentions of these kinds of arguments and how, like, at this time, it was like widely accepted that you would use sources that were like from Greek mythology and also from like a scientific text that was written 2 years ago. Like, those
And
things
both
were
are
not
valid.
Yeah, like, exactly. They were equally valid and you would use both of them. So I thought, I don't know if that like affects your guys' answer, but Taylor, what were you gonna say?
I was
who won?
I was gonna say, like, I agree with you a lot, Julia, that because hers is the response, she has a much better footing to like take like what he said, do her own research, and then refute it that way. Whereas, you know, the person who stated it first, like, they have the power to do the research ahead of time, but you know, they can't account for everything. Also, I'm biased, so I mean, Lucrezia was always going to win. Even though, like, not all of her points I agreed with. I can't get over how in one of the final chapters she was like, men say girls are stinky, but men are stinky too.
But did she lie though? Men are stinky.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like, so we see that from the footnotes, it's like we'll see several times the translator, I guess it was, who was like, she actually mixed up these two references. So like she did have flaws in her argument, but I feel like just based on, again, like the summary and the backstory on Giuseppe's versus Lucrezia's, I feel like her research was a lot stronger. And like, I also thought it was interesting. She like called him out for like cherry picking lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so he would talk about how like Aristotle was, I think it was Aristotle.
I think so.
No, maybe it was one of the other, maybe it was like one of the other Greek philosophers, who like is famous for like hating women. But then she's like, well, you didn't look at this section where he actually is really on their side. And so I feel like Lucrezia had better arguments, even if the sources she used are things that we would not use today. But I also am biased. Like, I probably would have said, yeah, Lucrezia destroyed him, like, almost regardless. But I do think that just looking at what we know of the two arguments, I feel like Lucrezia's was better backed up. Especially like, which we'll get into, like some of Giuseppe's points were like, one time a woman wouldn't date me, so they're all sluts. Like, like that was like literally his argument, and Lucrezia's like, that's not how it works, friend.
Yeah. Hey, what you just said is sexist and it doesn't make sense. So way to go.
Maybe you're just stinky, Giuseppe.
Maybe you're just stinky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like, and don't think I'm fancy, I just had to look up the modes of persuasion because I forgot what they were. But I feel like Lucrezia's was a lot more like logos, right? Like the logical argument, and his was more of like the pathos, like the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, listen, here's why I hate women. Oh, they're just doing that and that. Like heading to the library and these points wrong. And Mary Margaret's here. Yay.
Yay. Hello, Mary Margaret. Yeah, I definitely, which it's funny because one of his arguments, one of the classic sexist arguments against women is like, they just think with their feelings. They're so dumb. And like, here's Giuseppe. He's like, one time a woman made me cry. Now I hate them all. Yeah, I don't remember if it was in the text or if it was the translator who was like, this was written right after Giuseppe was turned down. Like,
yes. I was like,
like the timing is an interesting thing to think about. I'm just saying. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. We focused more on like the structure of the essay, but what did you guys think about the writing style? Obviously, this is like partly Lucrezia herself and partly like the translator, but aside from the argument structure and how that was a struggle sometimes, what did you think about her actual writing?
I mean, clearly something must have been going right because I saved a lot of quotes. Like there were a lot of lines where I was like, oh, Lucrezia, whoa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was something going on where I was like, she's speaking to me. And I mean, it goes along with the list format in that like sometimes I would just feel like not even bogged down, but like, you know, when the list starts to go on for so long, you're like, I forgot what list we're in. Like that is when I'm like, okay, I need to like take a step back and be like, okay, we're talking about this point. Or like she would give 5 examples of something that were all so similar that I was like, I think 3 would have sufficed actually.
Yeah.
But thanks. But sometimes we just had the right turn of phrase that really worked for me.
Yeah. Going with the theme of this show, I agree with you, Julia. I will say, like,
she's talking first.
No. She's a really good writer, and she's clearly very talented at her craft. Because, you know, like you, Julia, I also saved a lot of quotes from her. I think, like, outside of the list format, something that did sort of grind my gears just a little bit. And like this could be the translator, but with each new like list item throughout the whole thing, it's like, lest we forget Hannibal, blah 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 blah. And I would be remiss in not mentioning blah 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 blah. And it was like the same intro or like a similar intro for each paragraph. And it's like, I shan't forget Dido. And I'm like, I literally didn't even think about her. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh. In our next live show, I'm gonna like towards the end, I'm gonna be like, lest we forget the like most minor character who was in one scene.
Yeah. Or like she'll be like, I know you've been waiting for me to mention like Alexander, and I'm like, I wasn't. That's a good point. I wonder if that is the translator, because it could be like an old-fashioned, like I don't speak Italian. I know very little Italian. So I don't know how much difference there is between the modern language and what would have been written at this time. But I wonder if there are certain like verbs or other parts of speech that like you translate them as the word, but there's that connotation of being very formal. And so that was the translator attempting to be like, remember this, but formally. Like I don't know who was responsible for that, but that is a fair point.
It's just a nitpick. Sorry.
No.
It's a nitpick, but it did bother me.
It's valid though, like especially when you have something like a structure that is already repetitive, to then have like a similar introduction to all of that is kind of a lot. I agree with both of you guys. I think the actual writing style I really enjoyed. It was very accessible. There were some really, like, we've been all talking about how many quotes we saved. And I also, which we talked about a little, I really like the blend of like humor and sarcasm with these really thoughtful points that she's making. Like the first time that she was really sarcastic, I was like, wow, I like underlined it because I didn't know to expect that necessarily. Which is also a nice reminder that it's not like people living 100 years ago had no sense of humor, you know? Just because they spoke more formally doesn't mean they never made jokes. And so that was like my main takeaway, I guess, with the writing style, is that the style itself felt pretty approachable, and I liked how much humor there was. And just like in little ways as well. like when she was very sarcastically like, our good friend Aristotle, and after he had just like destroyed him for the last like oh, speaking of destroyed, I love the later like section headings. Let me see if I can find one of these.
Like in the second half.
Speroni's opinion narrated and destroyed.
I saw that.
Was like the heading of one of these. Like Boccaccio's opinion adduced here and destroyed. Like, I really enjoyed that. I don't know if that was Lucrezia and the translator, but I was having a good time. Like, I was like, yeah, let's destroy Speroni together.
Yeah, like no. Twilight. You know, when you got like Jacob's point of view and the chapter names were like something wild. And Bella's chapter would be like chapter 19, and Jacob's chapter would be like, we almost jumped off the cliff. Like, I don't know. It would just be like something crazy compared to hers. You're like, oh, okay.
I don't even remember those chapter headings. So
it happened. I'm gonna look one up.
Hey, Margaret, a new goal of mine: destroy a man's opinion.
Yes.
and like the fact that she like this was the name of the heading, it was like this, like everyone turned to page 47 where we shall destroy Boccaccio. Like,
yeah, they have like narrated and refuted, and then the next one is Speroni's opinion narrated and destroyed.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, whoa, okay. Oh, Boccaccio's opinion adduced here and destroyed.
And destroyed, yeah.
Yeah, compared to chapter 10. Why didn't I just walk away? Oh, right, because I'm an idiot. Like,
thank you.
That's Giuseppe's chapter.
Yeah. Giuseppe and Jacob Black have some striking similarities.
That is true.
And we've never seen both of them in the same place at once. So
you do the math.
Suspicious. Funny, yes, but not funny. Haha. Funny, weird.
Okay, so next I kind of want to talk about, these are like the two big sections, I guess, of the discussion. So we talked a little bit about this. There are some sections of this feminist text that are very dated because this was written in like literally the year 1600. Mm-hmm. So I just thought we could talk about some of those. Like we did mention the very binary, like men and women language that is used throughout the entire thing, which is obviously very much a product of its time. We also, in the content warning sections, we talked about some of the like casual period racism and Islamophobia and colonialism that like was not even like, not that it would be okay if it was like an intention of the text, but like it was just dropped in. Like there was like no reason to bring up like the country that she did, and yet she did. Mm-hmm. So anyway, any other things like that you guys specifically want to talk about? So like pieces where it did not age well.
I can go because the part 1 chapter, which is of the nature and essence of the female sex, where she's talking about how hot women are and how much hotter they are than men. Yeah. There's a lot of like, well, one, it's sort of reducing women to how like pretty they are, but also like there's like something, and I don't know if I can find it, but she says something along the lines of like the beauty on the outside like reflects like the virtue on the inside. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't like this implication that just because someone is a little ugh that they are evil.
Like, very Victorian. Yeah,
I was gonna say we comment on this like in our Victorian literature discussions, but it goes way back, and it was very blatant in this.
Yeah. Similarly to that section, actually, I feel like it's in the same. It's like there's like this implication that like women are there to like ornament the world, like to be like to lift your heart with how beautiful and virtuous they are. And it's one of those things that like some of the things she's saying are like complimentary, I guess, because she's talking about how like, you know, people can inspire others to be good if they also act good. So it's like not makes me think of 8 Cousins. It's like I don't disagree with everything you were saying, but the way you were saying it makes me want to disagree. Like obviously
I
there
wish
are
I disagreed more. Stop
Yeah.
saying it like that.
Yeah, obviously there are a lot of things that she says that I do disagree with, but like there are some things where it's like I am uncomfortably in the middle. Like yeah, like it's not wrong to want to look pretty and to enjoy looking pretty, but sometimes the way she talks about it is like women have like a duty to the world to like ornament their beauty kind of thing, and that I don't like.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
definitely concur with both of you. I mean, like, I get it. I am guilty of being that person who goes, for every 50 beautiful women I see one beautiful man. What is that about? Like, the math doesn't check out. It is true. She's right on that point. However, again, it should not be like, oh yeah, and because every woman is beautiful, that means she's also a perfect angel on the inside. And
Right.
also she's, you know, like beautifying the world just by existing. And, you know, if a woman isn't beautiful, well, then maybe she's one of the rotten apples. I don't know. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And even like the whole, oh, sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
No, I was just going to say, the part where she says, so if women are more beautiful than men, who, as can be seen, are generally coarse and ill-formed, who can deny that they are more remarkable? This does remind me, like, I don't know, of how we always comment on, like, the Instagram GF and BF, where, like, the girl on Instagram is, like, gorgeous, and her boyfriend is, like, just some guy.
Yeah. Some
like,
generally coarse and ill-formed man. Yeah.
Well, not even just talking about like the looks, just like not dressing like well, or no personal hygiene and stuff. And it's like,
no effort.
yeah, but I still am like not a fan of like judging morality based off of how someone looks. Because like, I don't know, if someone took a look at me like 9 a.m. on a Monday working from home, they would think I was pure evil.
Yeah.
Don't do this to us, Lucrezia.
Did you know? I was gonna say, did you know that when we're in our live shows, I'm actually perfect, and the rest of the time I'm the spawn of Satan? Did you know that? Because my looks would have you believe so.
Yeah, the discussion of beauty in this book is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even like the most basic like premise, which is so like Giuseppe, trash can Giuseppe, he was obviously, his point was men are better than women are the worst, and then Lucrezia is just the exact opposite. Women are better than men are the worst. And I feel like not that long ago that this was happening, but I feel like nowadays like there's a little bit more effort, like because feminism is actually about like we just want equality, like just treat us like a person. Also, toxic masculinity hurts everybody, including men. So like it's much more about like we're not saying we're better, we're saying we want like basic rights, you know, like we want what you guys have. We're not taking something from you. Yeah. We just want the same. And this is not so much that. Her, like Lucrezia's point, I like how I keep saying Lucrezia, like we're besties. Like I just use her first name.
Kretzy, listen, girl.
Yeah. So like her point is very much like women over men, you know? So I think that was also something that like it rubbed me the wrong way, not just because that's also not okay, but also because that's like still this preconception about feminism that it's about hating men and saying that all men are monsters and women are the only decent people, which again is very binary. But so that was something else that bothered me about this book, is like that was kind of the whole premise. Like again, some of the stuff she says, like when she talks about how like men are more prone to violence and things like that, it's like, I mean, statistically, yes, like the way that our society raises men is like that. And so like there are still like some things that she has a point, but like the overall message or like tone, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, and like, so I'm of not of two minds. I have 2 points with this. One, like, because I also don't ascribe to the whole like all men are evil, all men suck thing, because I think one, we need more nuance than that now, especially because like, you know, trans men don't have the same privilege as cis men. You know, they're also very much discriminated against, as well as other marginalized genders. But and also like the whole like women are inherently better than men also holds women up to this impossible standard. Like women are also allowed to suck, be evil, eat hot chip and lie, but like so I think that's what's so great about like just humanity is that everyone is complex and it doesn't work to sort of like stereotype the sexes into like either really good or evil.
Wow.
Either way,
It's almost as if morality is just a scale like gender is. Wow.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Galaxy brain Julia over here. I just want to show you Mary Margaret said, I am either potato or hot potato.
It's my favorite saying now.
I know we all do this, but I am just shocked. It's like, you guys are so cute. I don't understand why you like say this. But I support you in your needing reassurance of that. Don't we all feel like potatoes sometimes?
Absolute potato mode. Yeah.
And potatoes are delicious. So
everyone loves potatoes in all their forms.
It's true. It's true. Okay. One of the other sorry, was somebody gonna
No, I didn't know if you were gonna change the topic, because if so, I'm gonna interject. But if you're still on the same like refuting points, then carry on.
Okay, yes. I was gonna add one of the other ones that struck me is it kind of gets into this like women can fix men a little bit. Like not explicitly always, but kind of when she's talking about how like again women are inherently virtuous and all of this and like they can inspire men to be better. Some of the ways that she talks about that, it felt a little bit like it is women, not their job, but like women are built to do this, to like make men better people. So that was also something that I didn't love. Again, not surprising in the Renaissance, like but we can still talk about not being a fan of it.
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of balance like our modern day like perception. At least this was how it was for me, like balancing my modern day perceptions of feminism while also looking at this text in the context of when was it published? 1600?
I think 1600, yeah.
Which like things were very different back then.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it just says that she died in 1653. In my copy, at least. I think it was 1600. Yeah, because like Giuseppe's thing came out in 1599, and she wrote it a year after.
And she wasted
let me get in here. Yeah.
Love that for her.
Yeah, this was her reputation era, if you will.
Yeah. So it is a little bit hard for me to sort of separate because some of her opinions are just so of her time that I'm just like, how do you even believe this? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yep. Julia, did you have one?
Oh, I've got one. This one really rubs me the wrong way. Ironically, as someone who's like, I love Romeo and Juliet, you would think you'd be like, oh, this is something that Julia is okay with. No, I actually hated this section so much. It is, part 1, section 3 of Strong and Intrepid Women, which is just an entire section about women who were so brave enough to take their own lives instead of facing some other terrible fate. And it actually like works. Like, I don't know if you can hear me getting heated right now, but like, I hated that chapter so much because I'm like, hey, you know what's a better ending? Women who like got to keep living their lives and like, you know, maybe overcame some terrible fate. Like, I want to hear that story because in all these examples of like, oh, she was facing this, she killed herself. Oh, she was facing that, she unalived her children. Like all these things where I was like, whoa, hey, like you can use examples of stories like Judith from the Bible. You could
always
use
love a Judith
Elizabeth
moment.
of York and how she was like, you're not going to make me your mistress. And he was like, okay, I'll marry you. And she's like, yes, that's right. I'm queen now. Like there are exact same scenarios where you can support that same point. and then have the women like thriving afterwards. So it just it gets me really heated. Okay, I don't like it.
And I also feel like that chapter should have gone in the defects and vices of men, because it's not as much about women who would prefer to, how she framed it, keep their chastity, as opposed to facing like horrible abuse and assault at the hands of men who killed themselves, and she treats it as like a virtue, as opposed to like, hey, these guys suck, shouldn't we move this to part 2? Like, she has a whole chapter about the violence of men, and I'm like, that would have fit perfectly in there. And I don't know, like, once again, it's the 1600s mindset about women being virtuous and chaste, but it really did grind my gears. Because I'm like, listen, I mean, here at Past It Classics, we love a good, like, slut.
I'm gonna be the one to say it.
Okay, I'll say it.
I mean, we have a whole point about the MILF of Wildfell Hall, so
exactly.
Lest we forget.
And I don't know, I feel like I'm like, I know it's the 1600s, but also like, listen, can we talk about some women who like got it on consensually and didn't kill themselves?
Woo!
Yeah, and there was like, I also like so many of the examples, and I think it was even, I thought it was even in other chapters that she would refer to some of these famous ones, like when she's talking about the Sabine, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Sabine.
Okay. She was talking about the Sabine women several times, and that was something where she did really center the fact that like these men were doing horrible things and this is what happened to the women. But like in some of the other sections, it wasn't even just the chapter where all of her examples were about women doing this. She would like bring it up in other cases, and there was like, I think there was maybe like one reference somewhere to like when she talks about like the idea of self-murder as being like this horrible thing. So in that way, she is kind of acknowledging that this shouldn't have happened, that this wasn't like, oh, they did the right thing, let's all like applaud them. But that was very rare. Like most of the time she was talking, she literally called them virtues, you know, talking about like this being a good thing to do, and this proved that these were great women. And it's it's very upsetting, especially coming from a woman. It's like you were saying, Taylor, it's hard to sometimes separate how we feel about these things now from what people thought then, because there's some of these things where I'm like, how did you as a woman ever think about this in the context of like they did their best, like I don't know, like I'm incoherent. I'm so upset about it. So like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Sorry for bringing it up, but I hated that part.
No, it's valid.
Yeah, I would have brought it up if you didn't. It's just that the whole like ugly people suck chapter also got me.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't go back through the whole thing to like I remembered some specific examples, but I didn't go back and check all of them. So I'm glad that you guys have been like mentioning ones that I didn't have down, obviously.
Hold on, I have a note that I really want to make sense of. That's probably not a serious one. What did she say? I don't know. I have to find it. My note just says, "A Leigh Bardugo fan, I see." So I don't know what she said. Oh, okay. She was quoting someone else, but it ended with, "Are you two merely shadow and bone?" Okay, sorry. That'll lighten the mood for you.
Yeah. I love going back and trying to understand what my notes mean.
Yeah.
It's like, you'd think I would understand these things that came from my own brain, but I do not.
Yeah. I have one that I really like too that just says, quote, "Every woman is under the particular influence of the moon." Okay, we're werewolves, thanks.
I was wondering, I'm like, is that where the whole like, oh, women are in touch with the moon and the tides because of their like periods or whatever
I
thing
think
came
that
from?
was why. Yeah, I think that was a part of it, if
'Cause,
not like the major reason.
I wish I had moon powers.
I know. Well, and like Artemis / Diana, like
Mm,
she
yeah.
was associated, like she was the goddess of like maidens and hunting and the moon. So
That's my girl. Love her.
also, I guess werewolves. I don't know.
I wish.
Okay, so if we have any other for this section, we can definitely talk about that. Otherwise, I thought we would do the flip side. So now, so we talked about Lucrezia's not her finest moments. So now let's talk about any of the sections that we thought were especially modern or like progressive or yeah, I guess just like anything that surprised us with how similar it feels to the way we talk about issues now. Which we did talk a little bit about. Yeah, I don't know why I'm asking like I have to really explain this question. It's a very concept.
I'm just
Let me run this by you again.
So I actually would love to share a quote from like the part one when she is refuting Boccaccio's point, which sort of ties into what we were talking about earlier. But it says, Boccaccio, may God have mercy on his soul, which I am assuming it's because he's dead, but I love the idea, like, I am about to slay him so hard.
I actually took that to mean, like, may God have mercy on him for being such a sexist pig. Like,
that's another really good interpretation.
I accept both of our interpretations. Like, I'm about to slay him so
may God have mercy on Boccaccio. So.
Yes. He's about to be a smoking wreck right here. Like,
Boccaccio, may God have mercy on his soul, composed this book called The Labyrinth, as he himself relates out of spite and a bitter affliction that ultimately led him to desire death. His words are, and moved by such affliction, both for my own bestiality and for the neglectful cruelty of she whom I loved more than life, I began to desire death. End quote. He was frequently mocked by this woman, who did not love him at all, which often caused him to grieve and lament that he, who was so learned and full of erudition, should be so scorned and derided. The poor man was wrong to grieve over the fact that the widow he loved did not love him, because she was not obliged to love him, as he himself states at the beginning of his book, any more than he was her, according to his reasoning. And I love that so much. And like I said, we discussed this earlier, but the idea that, like, you know, just because someone loves you doesn't mean they're obliged to love you back. And Boccaccio is allowed to feel sad, but he isn't allowed to be angry at this widow or at all women for rejecting him, even if he does have like a big smart boy brain.
Yeah. Yeah. I underlined that part as well. And that was, I think, one of my favorite things that she talks about is the way that, like, nobody is owed romantic affection. Like, nobody is owed a reciprocation of feelings. I think she talks about that a few times. I feel like there was a quote I had about that as well. Let's see. We can also keep talking about stuff while I look for this.
I am going to be like a failure in this section because honestly, most of the quotes I saved were just like the absolutely savage ones where I'm like, she's actually like a little bit wrong in this, but I just love her for saying it.
That's like the one that I marked near the beginning that was like, okay, wait, now I can't find it. I thought it was near the beginning. It's because there's so much introductory stuff that it doesn't feel like it was the beginning. Where is it? Oh, here we go. I am not moved by hate or scorn, still less by envy. On the contrary, these are far from my mind, because I have never wanted, nor do I want, nor will I ever want to be a man.
Like, the ones I saved, I was like, oh my god.
Lucrezia, like, hit the ground running. She's like, you're disgusting.
The one that I was going to bring up is actually really similar in like sentence structure, so that's very funny. But she said, and I beg you to keep it in your memory that almost every bad deed that has been is or will be done by women had, has, or will have its origin in the evil nature of many men. And I'm like, I mean, some valid points were made here.
Yeah. Go off, Queen.
Yeah.
Queen.
My friend Nicole did her like college, what is it called? Not a thesis, but like a thesis. So she did this like basically like this idea. So she read like The Age of Innocence and The Crucible and Salome and like all these works in which there's like a woman who's like vilified essentially. And she's like, so here's why maybe those people were wrong, or like the Scarlet Letter, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's kind of exactly what this point is. It's like, women did bad things. Wait a second. What prompted them to do those bad things? I see it comes back to men again.
Yeah.
Funny how that works.
This is another one like I thought was interesting. And this is something too that like obviously the way we understand gender is very different. So this is one of those things that like I don't agree with everything you say, but like I think I see what she's getting at. She says, I say it is false that every woman would wish to be a man, and that if she did wish it, it would only be in order to free her neck from the yoke of men's tyrannical dominion and make her rare virtues, which lie hidden within the walls of houses, better known. It's like I don't agree with the gender thing, but man, like you really like the like if we want to be treated like men, it's not because we think men are better. It's because we want to be treated like people.
Yeah.
And when she's like, within the walls of houses, like this idea of like women having all these virtues and dreams and skills that like just people don't know about. I mean, the fact that like even like reading history, it's like, gee, I wonder what the women were doing at this time. Nobody knows because no one cared to write it down. Like
one of the quotes that I saved from the introduction of this book was, a woman writing was in herself a statement of women's claim to dignity. And I'm like, yeah, like she was refuting his point merely by taking the act of writing this, which is like dope.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll also say that part 2, The Defects and Vices of Men, does a lot to sort of like take down or like dismantle toxic masculinity, where she's just going at all these things like of obstinate and pertinacious men, ungrateful and discourteous men, and then there was like men who hate. And what I love is chapter 14 is a fickle, inconstant men, because I feel like in literature women are often portrayed as like fickle and inconstant because they can't make up their mind and stuff like that, which I loved. But from chapter 22 of men who are ornate, polished, painted, and bleached, this idea that like why are men allowed to, or like why are women scorned for trying to look beautiful in a society that sort of like values beauty? And apparently in this essay where Lucrezia clearly values beauty,
yes she does, yeah,
there's like this paragraph near the beginning. Why should it be a sin if a woman born with considerable beauty washes her delicate face with lemon juice and the water of bean flowers and privets in order to remove her freckles and keep her skin soft and clean? Or if with columbine, white bread, lemon juice, and pearls, she creates some other potion to keep her face clean and soft? I believe it to be merely a small one. If roses do not flame within the lily pallor of her face, could she not, with some art, create a similar effect? Certainly she could, without fear of being reproved, because those who possess beauty must conserve it, and those who lack it must make themselves as perfect as possible, removing every obstacle that obscures its splendor and grace. And if writers and poets, both ancient and modern, say that her golden hair enhances her beauty, why should she not color it blonde and make ringlets and curls in it so as to embellish it still further? And I just thought that was really interesting about, like, you know, writers and poets, most of which are men, are setting these beauty standards of like beautiful golden hair, or like their hair falls in ringlets, and like then make fun of women who try to achieve what they have set as the beauty standard.
Yeah. Especially the way that she like specifically, like she doesn't explicitly say it, but she's talking about like makeup too.
Yeah.
Which would have been a big no at the time. And even like coloring your hair, which would have like, this was still very much in the period of like, you can wash your face and that's about it. Like, saying, yeah, I really like some parts of that as well.
Yeah, that's like the men who are like, take her swimming on the first date.
Oh,
yeah.
I hate that.
Joke's on you. I wore waterproof makeup, buddy. I will wear makeup while I swim, and you can't stop me.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember I saw this post a while ago where this girl asked her boyfriend, like, oh, what sort of makeup do you like on a woman? And he's like, oh, I like the natural look. And she's like, okay, what do you mean by the natural look? And he was like, I don't know, like Kim Kardashian. And it's like, are you kidding me?
I would say that.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's the difference between the women who like wear no makeup every day, and then the day that they don't wear makeup, everyone's like, are you feeling okay? Are you sick? It's just my face. Like,
and then those are usually the same people who it's like, oh, you don't have to wear makeup, like if you don't want to.
Well, clearly I do.
Yeah.
This is
I like a crone.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's true. I also marked a lot of her like sassy moments. So like she's talking about how men should, with a subtle intelligence, consider their own imperfections. Oh, how humble and low they would become. Perhaps one day, God willing, they will perceive it. And then like end paragraph. I'm like she's like, I pray to God that you guys get it together. Like, oh my gosh.
that is iconic.
On the more I guess thoughtful side, I mentioned one of the things I really liked is that she is really good about calling out like hypocrisy and like just like nonsensical, like what she's talking about Aristotle like bitching about how women are more dishonest and given to gossiping than men and more envious and slanderous. He did not see that in calling them slanderous, he too was joining the ranks of the slanderers. And it's true.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I mean, this is more on the goofs side again, but I love that she basically like points to natural selection as to be like, okay, but if nature chooses to make, things better, it's weird that there are more women than men in the population because it seems like nature's saying we need more of that thing. This is a silly point, but I like that you said it.
It's like, do I agree with everything? No, but like I'm having a good time. Like,
I mean, hey, this is long before Charles Darwin, so she was like, she's on the up and up.
There you go. I feel like there's like so many parts of this book that it's like if you were like at a party or just like hanging out with some of your girlfriends and like she'd say, you'd be like, Lucrezia, you can't say that, but you're like laughing.
Oh, I love the vision of like a Renaissance get together and everyone's like, Lucrezia, stop.
Yes. Oh, this is another one I love. So this is kind of going along with like when men are rejected, they say like, well, you're a horrible harpy anyway. Also, you're a slut because you won't sleep with me, because that makes sense. But this also goes along with one of the other things I like that she does, which is she's really good at like dismantling the fact that a lot of these men she's talking about, like they'll have one bad experience with a woman and they'll be like, the entire gender or sex of women has all of these problems. So she says, when a man wishes to fulfill his unbridled desires and is unable to because of the temperance and continence of a woman, he immediately becomes angry and disdainful, and in his rage says every bad thing he can think of, as if the woman were something evil and hateful. It's like, yeah, still true. Like,
I can't believe she predicted incels. I actually wanted to read out. I feel like this is just the quote reading section, which I'm here for.
So many good ones.
Yeah. When she's talking, and she cites Cicero in her part 2, chapter 12 of Obstinate and Pertinacious Men. And while she uses this to refer to men, I also think it's just very good for the state of the world we live in today. Obstinacy is a firm perseverance of one's own opinion, even when it is false and irrational. Cicero says of it in Academica, many people prefer to go wrong and to defend most vehemently the path that they love, rather than to seek without obstinacy the path that is most consistent. End quote. This is undoubtedly the sign of an unhealthy mind, since nothing could be more foolish than to hold uncertain things as certain, false as true, and unknown as known and familiar. These are precisely the admirable effects of obstinacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this just because I feel like, especially within the past couple of days on Twitter, people are just posting like fake stuff and just not being swayed when they are presented with facts. And I'm like, this isn't just men now. This is everyone across genders.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like a cultural thing. Like the idea of admitting that you don't know something is like the worst thing. And so instead
Yeah.
you're gonna like pick your opinion and like die on that hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I had also underlined moreover, I would say that as nature produces smaller numbers of men than of women, that men are the less noble sex, since nature chooses not to produce larger copious quantities of them. So what you were talking about, Julia.
Lucrezia, stop it.
Oh my god, someone's gonna hear you.
Shh. One thing I also, yeah, we really are in the quote section, but I think that makes sense because like this topic lends itself to supporting yourself with evidence, as Lucrezia would want.
That is what she would want.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, see, this is another one. I like this. Oh, how many women there are who, with their greater prudence, justice, and experience of life, would govern empires better than men. It's like, no, women are not inherently better rulers, but I love that you said this. Like, we need more women in politics. Thank you.
Yeah.
Especially then when there was approximately 0. So
0. Yeah. Oh, this part. Okay, this gives me like Anne Elliot vibes, and I love it.
Ooh.
I have avoided the fatigue of reading every history book available, knowing that their authors, being men and jealous of women's noble deeds, have not recounted women's most worthy actions, but have remained silent about them.
That is so Anne Elliot.
Love it.
Oh, there was one part that I like wanted to read out that was like really cool, and maybe here it is. So let me make sure I'm right. If someone has something else to say, go for it. Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
sorry.
No, mine wasn't even a quote from the book. It was a quote that she quoted. I was like, I can throw this one out there. So go ahead.
But I don't know if I can find the exact quote, but there was this part where she was talking about how, like, you know, obviously, once again, sex and gender are sort of linked in this, but we know now that it's not always the case. But how oftentimes cis women are more physically stronger than cis women. And she's like, that may be true, but also that's because men are more accustomed to like heavy labor because that's what they're allowed to do. Hence why like someone who works in construction is going to be physically stronger than someone who than a doctor or something. And she like points that out, and I'm like, oh, that's such a good point. I love it.
Yeah.
This goes back to 8 Cousins too, Kara. Where they're like, let the girl run and be hardy like her boy cousins. Like, yeah.
Yeah. What was the one you were gonna share, Julia?
Hold on. I wish I could find out what page this is. I took a picture of it like a fool. But I love it. It might be Dante, but other works have cantos. So I don't know. Anyways, the quote just says, women have become excellent at every art that they have attempted, and to those who study history, their fame is clearly apparent. Yeah, it is.
I feel like I probably
read up, buddy.
What'd you say, Julia?
I said, read up. That's right.
Yeah. I really like, this kind of is what you were saying, Taylor, about like strength and almost like division of labor, and how that, like, you can't use that as like a reasoning for somebody being stronger or smarter. I really love that she talks about like women's skill sets, specifically like the ones that are associated with women. If they do not show their skills, it is because men do not allow them to practice them, since they are driven by obstinate ignorance, which persuades them that women are not capable of learning the things they do. And then later on the page, she's quoting somebody else. But since she is brought up to perform different tasks, she receives scant respect for her education. Like, I love that. Like, you guys know I always have like big feelings about like women's work being like devalued because it is associated with women. And I love that she is talking about that here. That it's like they're not unskilled. You just don't care about this skill. So you think it doesn't matter. Let's see you work that loom, buddy. Like, try it. Like,
Giuseppe, why are you crying? It's just a loom.
that would go on the shirt for our future merch. Giuseppe, why are you crying?
You just reminded me of a meme that is so good. It's so you guys know the Arthur like it's just Arthur's fist, like Arthur the Aardvark. Like it looks like he's standing and his fist is just clenched, like he's so pissed.
Yeah.
So someone embroidered it like a needle. His embroidered. It says, "When you remember that historically embroidery hasn't been taken seriously as a medium because it's women's work." It's just this little fist. That's you, Kara.
It is.
Me at all times.
I love that.
Also, I did find the source of the quote that I quoted, and it's one from Orlando Furioso, which she quotes like 1,000 times in this, and I added it on Goodreads because I'm like, this sounds great. What the heck is this?
Yeah.
Also, anything with like Furioso in the name, I'm like, I'm already a little intrigued. Yeah. I like too that she obviously a lot of the examples she's using that are from like mythology they tend to be like queens and like princesses and all of this, but she talks a lot about like ordinary women too. She says, not just that of queens and great ladies, but of every lowly woman who organizes her household and family, who administers the possessions and wealth acquired by men and distributes it with great foresight according to need and to the times. So she's talking about like the ability of like women are actually great at math because they're like doing household expenses and stuff. This cracks me up though. The next sentence is unhappy the men, and particularly those of France and Germany, if their women should cease to manage their wealth, for they would immediately lose their riches and become beggars.
She called all French and German men bad at math.
I just like, why is that here? But they recognize women's prudence and allow themselves to be governed by women. The French never handle a single coin without asking their wives' permission. I pass over the fact that in the same countries, women attend to business with a diligence that is unsurpassed by the foremost merchant in all of Italy, a sign of the highest intelligence. End chapter.
Love it.
That paragraph is a roller coaster because it's like, yes, girl, like what? Okay, no.
Journey.
Lucrezia stands a simp.
Yeah.
And I do too, if we're being honest.
I was going to say, can relate.
Yeah. Especially France and Germany. She's like, you guys need extra help. Oh, man. Okay. I think, are there any other... We're kind of in the quote section already, so
yeah.
we can keep doing that. We talked, do you guys have any other parts that you want to focus on as like being especially applicable to the modern day, or just like that struck you with how like thoughtful and nuanced they were? Let's see.
I think I got all of mine out.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many.
Yeah. Let's see if I had any. I think those were the main things I had marked.
Oh, sorry. I do have one. I do love that she sort of talks about how like women's accomplishments have historically been buried throughout history because women weren't really considered worthy of sort of recording. So she, I was going to say she tweeted. She did not tweet.
Lucrezia was like really ahead of her time.
I mean,
can you imagine if she was on
format? This is like a big old Twitter thread, though. Like,
can you imagine if Lucrezia was on Twitter? Oh my god.
She's like, this essay actually starts with, "Buckle up, y'all, I got a thread for you."
I mean, someone could truly like tweet this whole book out and just be like,
Yep.
People would follow it.
What were you actually going to say?
She writes, I now wish to proceed to examples, which will be brief since I have avoided the fatigue of reading every history book available, knowing that their authors, being men and jealous of women's noble deeds, have not recounted women's most worthy actions, but have remained silent about them. Yeah. It's just that little bit that I was like, yes.
True.
Sometimes because I'm emotional and I love history, I get emotional about like all of the women that have been forgotten throughout history because people didn't feel like they were worthy of talking about.
I do too. I was like, there's this nonfiction book and I haven't read it yet, but I was just like flipping through the beginning and it's talking about like the women's rights movement like throughout like history, specifically in the US, I think. And like the first like intro is like a page long and the author is talking about how throughout the book she uses the women's first names when she's referring to them. Like she gives you their whole name, but when she's talking about them in the text she uses their first name because she said she wants them to feel like approachable, you know, like but she says but also because like if I were to use their last name they would always be defined by their husband or their father. And I like almost cried. I'm like, that's true though. Like
so good.
So yeah. Anyway, I get emotional about history all the time.
No, I know. Well, like, because I've gone on like these rampages where I'm like talking about so and so, and I'm like, no one appreciates Anne Neville, and I'm like, this was a literal queen of England. Like, if a woman who was like genuinely royalty can't get any respect and recognition, like. Imagine all of the women, all of them. Like what? That's so wild.
That's one of the reasons why like the well-behaved women seldom make history. Like the misquoting of that is one of my like a special pet peeves. Is because the actual context is like from this essay. Like I think like the author was researching. I don't remember what century it was. It was like a few hundred years ago. Maybe she was talking about Puritan women. I'm not sure. But like her whole point is that we don't even know what women were missing because they followed the rules and nobody thought they were important. And so like people use this as like yeah, girl power, like do the most at all times. And it's like that is important, but like the intention of the quote is that there are so many ways to be a valuable like person and to like that everyone is valuable, you know, and that like you don't have to be like Alice Paul, you know, to like be worthy of being remembered. So every time I hear somebody like misquote that or misuse that, I'm just like, this is not the time to get into it. But
it's gonna bother me if I don't tell you how wrong you are. So
I think about that all the time for Parks and Rec, where he's like, I don't have time to tell you how wrong you are. Actually, it's gonna bother me if I don't. Like that is me. That's me. Anyway, so. That was very off topic. I just have feelings about that.
And I agree with that. That's like, I don't know.
It's like a girl bossification of history.
You literally took the words out of my mouth.
We're all so in sync, you guys.
Oh, I'm gone. Oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It says, looks like your camera was unplugged. I didn't do anything. My camera is part of my laptop. So
that is what's also wild is you like I think you did like the peace sign and then the camera went off. Oh no, he's gone.
Okay, it says they'll need to connect their mic/camera before you can add them to the stream. So I guess we'll hope that works.
Private chat.
Okay, she's gonna rejoin.
Yeah.
So Taylor, were you gonna say anything else before I interrupted you?
I don't even know, but like, I mean, I love that whole like, I don't know, that quote you're talking about because I didn't know that, and like, it's one of those quotes that like I agree with, but I'm also like, it sounds sort of scornful to the women who like did follow the rules or like were happy in the society they grew up in, either because like, you know, maybe they just had better circumstances, or they didn't have the education that we had, or like we're just fine with it.
Or they worked within it, you know, in really quiet ways to like make change. And Yeah, and it's like it's I agree with the sentiment that people use it for, but like the original point is like it shouldn't be that way. You know, like it shouldn't be that the only women who make history are the kinds who are women who do these very specific kinds of things. And I didn't know the origin for the quote for a long time. So like no judgment for people who don't know it. It's like I think it's it like frustrates me when I see like publications use it in like that particular way, because I'm like, you guys have a team working on this. You'd think like but anyway, I want to read the original essay now because I'm like,
Me too.
I really like this.
We could add it to our long list.
Let me look that up. I'd love to. Julia,
nice to have you back, Julia.
Yes.
I saw that video clip of Robert Sheehan in like a Zoom interview where they're like introducing. I don't even watch the Umbrella Academy, but this video is like one of my favorite videos of all time. And they're like, so and so's here, and they're like, someone else is here, and they're like, and Robert Sheehan, and he goes, bonsoir. He's so unexpected. Every time.
I love that.
I'm gonna find it while you guys are doing this.
Please do. Okay.
What did I miss? You were just talking about the quotes still?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the original Pulitzer Prize winning author, Laurel Ulrich, wrote in 1976 about the pious women of colonial New England. And then she added a phrase that has since gained widespread currency. Well-behaved women seldom make history. So this, okay, I'll have to find the actual original essay because it looks like there's also like a collection of essays, maybe. She also mentions Christine de Pizan, who wrote the book of the City of Ladies, which I like also want to read. I've seen Mariana talking about that, and I'm like, every quote she shares is just like getting me fired up.
Is that on our list? Because I know I have that on Goodreads, but I don't know if that's on our collection.
I don't think it is. Basically, guys, we're going to be doing some editing on our list, so stay tuned for that. Okay, we basically did our quote section. Does anybody have any other quotes? One thing I did want to mention, which I shouldn't have put this at the end because it's kind of a bummer, but one of the things they talk about in the introduction, which I had heard about this before, is that like Lucrezia throughout her life, she wrote like a lot of like feminist texts like this, but then near the very end of her life, she kind of started talking about like how like education doesn't even help. And it kind of sounded like it was in the context of like she was really frustrated by like she had put her entire life into like screaming to, you know, give women what they deserve, and like it wasn't really happening. And I don't know, it's unclear if like she was saying like, I take it back, women aren't as good at school, or if she was more just like really frustrated with the world she lived in. Of course I like to hope it's the latter. Like I don't want to think about Lucrezia like being like, actually Giuseppe had a point. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting, like, because I mean in a way it's like I'm not even surprised, because like it must have been so disheartening to be a feminist in 1600s Europe. Like, oh my god.
And it's disheartening now, so I can only imagine.
Like, one can only imagine.
Yeah. And I mean, even it's also like we did get some great points out of this. So even if she did change her views later, we can still hold up this. It's like having some good things to say. But yeah. So any other quotes or thoughts? I think we covered pretty thoroughly Giuseppe getting his ass handed to him, so that was fun. Oh my god, one of my favorite things about that too is the part that like she will specifically address him.
Yeah.
Some of the other men who like wrote, because apparently this was just a trend at the time in literature.
Yeah,
you would write an essay. Yeah, you would like write an essay about how like women are the worst. So it was like a whole genre, and so she would like address them by their first name. Be like, hey, Giuseppe, remember when you said this? Here's why you're stupid. I enjoyed. Had a good time.
Love that for her.
I do. I really do. She did that for all of us. Watching Giuseppe get destroyed with facts and logic. That really is like we should be asked to do like a tagline for the next edition of this, because that's what happened. I love it.
Nailed it.
Got some love for Christine de Pizan? Yeah, I would love to. Mary Margaret says, I would 100% love to read that. It's supposed to be so good. I have also heard great things. Okay, so if we don't have anything else, Julia, do you want to introduce our upcoming book?
Did you figure out that's why I ran away in a sudden bit of passion?
As I was saying it, I was like, oh, wait. I wonder if that's why.
We're reading Heidi. Oh, wait. I'm trying to reflect it. By Joanna Spiery. I don't know. I'm excited. This is like...
Too.
I know I saw the Shirley Temple movie once as a child. Could not tell you a single thing about it. So I'm very excited to go into like a children's classic that I just am unfamiliar with.
I have read it, but it's been so long that I remember basically nothing about it. Like the only things I remember are because I read a nonfiction book that talked about children's classics and it talked about Heidi. That's like all I know, basically.
That's fair.
I've never read it, so I'm excited.
Yeah. It's going to be kind of fresh for all of us. This is cool. Yeah, Mary Margaret
and
says,
hopefully a quick read, right?
Yes.
And
nice and cozy. So
nice big typeface. We're going to the Alps, baby.
That's right. In summer.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Summer is the worst.
Yeah.
The worst season. At least in the Northern Hemisphere. Okay. So thank you guys so much for being here for Pasta Classics. We hope you got some enjoyment out of this. And if you're faced with some Giuseppes in your life, you have some responses ready to go.
Armed and ready.
Yes. Lucrezia did that for you. Okay. So anything else you guys want to add?
No. This is fun. Thank you, Kara, for hosting.
Of course. Thank you guys for being here and discussing with me. And thank you in the comments. Thank you to people who watch this back. Like, we really appreciate that because we go on. Me especially. I will talk. All right. So we will see you guys later. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. It always takes way longer to